In 2021 was the first time we saw the sprint weekend in Formula 1, and it was met with some mixed reviews. We had seen the sprint format used in junior formulas, but the British Grand Prix in 2021 saw the first rendition, with there being 3 of the sprints to be put into place as a kind of test for future seasons. But the format has changed since, and in 2021 we would have qualified on the Friday, which would have set the grid for Saturday's sprint. Then the finishing order of the sprint would set the final grid for the Sunday. Furthermore, the top 3 would be the only ones to get points, with P1 getting 3, P2 getting 2 and P3 getting 1 point, which was something for their troubles. There was some very good viewing for the sprints in 2021, with Hamilton coming from the back of the grid in Brazil to P5 in one of the best weekends for a driver in Formula 1 history. 2022 would see some slight changes, with there being the changes to the point system, with P1 getting 8 points and P2 getting 7 points. You sort of get the rest. The 3 sprint races would be in Imola, Austria and in Brazil, with some of them being more exciting than others. But the views were very mixed, to say the least. In today's video, we would be talking about the changes to the sprints for 2023 and beyond, the positives and the negatives of the sprint race weekend, and finally, how sprints could be the future of the sport. Let's get straight into it, shall we? To start off with, we are going to talk about the reason why you clicked this video, and that is the big changes to the race format for the sprint weekends. As we spoke about in the intro, the format has stayed the same for 2021 and 2022, but it was set to stay the same for 2023. But it changed just days before the first sprint race of the season in Baku. If you did not hear about the big changes that came in Baku, you'll have to bear with us as we go through them, because it gets very complicated, to say the least. So now we would still have qualifying on the Friday, but instead of it setting the grid for the sprint, this would set the grid for the race on the Sunday. So instead, the qualifying on the Saturday that will set us the grid for the Sunday is now Friday qualifying sets Sunday. Are you still with us? Now we go to the Saturday, where we would have an extra qualifying session, which would set the grid for the same day, where we would now have the sprint, which is the same format as it was in 2022. These changes may not be major when you look at it, but for the drivers, it's a lot more for them. On the majority of the weekends, there would be only 2 competitive sessions, whilst having 3 practice sessions compared to the sprint weekends, which is a major difference. There would be now 4 competitive sessions and 1 practice session, which is a very stark contrast between the 2 weekends that we have in 2023. Now, for fans watching at home and the track, it is much more exciting as we have more action. But for the drivers, it may be seen as a massive negative. This is because doubling the amount of competitive racing, it is a major change for the drivers, and even a normal weekend makes the drivers tired enough. The sprint changes are major, and they are set to continue for the rest of the season, but the FIA are more than likely set to change the format once again. Overall, it is fair to say that these changes are major, and the first race weekend in Baku was exciting, but we'll have to see if they continue to provide this drama in the rest of the sprint weekends of the season. What are your thoughts on the new sprint format? Is it a good idea to change the whole weekend to have more competitive action? Or did you prefer the old format from 2022? Let us know what you think in the comments below. On to our next subject, which is the positives and negatives of the sprint weekends as a whole. To start off with, we are going to talk about the positives of the sprint weekend and how they may possibly be better than the normal race weekend that we have had for so many years. One major positive, as we talked about earlier, is that there's more action for the fans at home and on the track. Practice sessions are good for the team, but they are not the most exciting thing to watch, as drivers are not fully pushing and they are not all racing each other. With the new sprint weekends, there is now only 1 practice session instead of 3. And now there are 4 competitive sessions compared to the 2. Another positive is that the sprint races can provide more excitement and drama to the race weekends, which the FIA seem to want now. As we saw in the sprint race at Baku between Russell and Verstappen, made for probably the best moment across the whole weekend, due to how bad the actual main race was. A final positive for the sprint weekends is that more points are up for grabs in the sprint races for the team to take home. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but the extra points that are given out to everyone from P1 to P8 make things more exciting. Now we move on to the negatives of the sprint races, and one of these is that the drivers are not happy with how much they have to race now over a weekend. They now have to have 2 qualifying sessions with the main race whilst having the sprint race, which is a shorter race. It is a lot for the drivers to do. They already put their bodies through a lot in qualifying and the race, and to have to do even more put on top of this, it is a lot for the drivers, and they could want the format to be changed. Another negative is that the teams have a big risk of them having a DNF or having to take more engine penalties throughout the season, because they will have to put their engine modes up to the max more than they normally do, as during practice they would turn the engine modes down to try and save the engine. Ferrari is screwed now. A final negative is that there's a lack of time for the drivers to get the right setup like they would normally would. With only 1 practice session, it means that the drivers will not have the right window to be able to get the feel that they want to do with the car ready for the race, meaning that more crashes and incidents are likely to happen. But what do you think of the sprint races? Let us know in the comments below. Our third and final topic of this video is how sprint races could become the future of the sport, even if you don't like it. It's been spoken about by the FIA and F1 themselves that they want fewer or no practice sessions and to have competitive session on the Friday. Now, many fans are not pleased about this because they believe it's all about money now and not about what the drivers and fans want. If we have sprint races in every weekend, it means there is competitive running on the Friday, meaning that more fans will want to be there every day. Some casual fans do not care about the practice sessions like hardcore fans, as they do not actually mean anything. It is in the name, and it is all practice. As we have heard many times from Stefano Domenicali, he wants a big change to the sport, and this format change we first saw in Baku could be the start of a new era in Formula 1. Some fans may not like it, but it could become something that we see every single weekend due to cash is king, as we've heard many drivers say. The drivers are not keen on the idea, and a lot of fans are not either. But if Formula 1 sees that more people buy tickets for the Friday, so they will see qualifying, they will obviously make a change where every single race in a season will be like what we saw in Baku. Do you prefer this new format, or do you like the classic 3 practice sessions qualifying on a Friday and then the race on a Sunday? Let us know what you think regarding these potential changes in the comments below, and we will have to see in the coming years if these big changes come into play for every weekend. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this one.